Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Bhakti Fundamentals. Today, we return with a question and answer session on the topic of why do we need spiritual life? In the relentless rush of our daily responsibilities, time tends to slip right through our fingers, and we rarely stop to ask the deeper questions of life. Who am I? Why am I here? What is my true purpose? But these important questions are the very questions that spiritual life answers. Without spiritual knowledge, without reflecting on these important questions of life, we risk moving through life on autopilot, chasing temporary material goals, yet never achieving the lasting fulfillment that we're so longing for. So today, let's take a step back and explore what pursuing spiritual life alongside our material obligations can offer us. Spiritual life doesn't require us to abandon our worldly duties. Rather, it invites us to infuse our material responsibilities and pursuits with a higher spiritual purpose. To start our session today, let's take a closer look at the material world, the nature of matter, and the reasons why pursuing only material life presents a problem. We've all heard the saying, "All that glitters is not gold." This saying perfectly encapsulates the material world. This world promises so much, yet it often falls short of our expectations. And even when it does deliver, the satisfaction is fleeting because matter and the material happiness it brings is temporary. No matter how much we achieve materially, nothing here lasts forever. Matter is temporary. To this point, let's recall the three outcomes possible for us materially. 1, we strive for something but fail to achieve it. For example, we might train for months for a marathon, but then suffer an injury that prevents us from competing. Or we save up to start our own business, but it never ever takes off. 2, we achieve what we desire, but it doesn't bring the happiness we expected. Say we finally take that dream vacation, but it's raining the whole time. Or we move to New York City for a high-paying job, only to find that we miss being near our old friends and family. 3, we attain something, enjoy it, but ultimately have to let it go. Say that over the course of this lifetime, we accumulate wealth, property, status, and have a wonderful family. But at the time of death, none of it goes with us. Each of these three outcomes highlights the temporary and fleeting nature of material achievements. No matter how much we gain, material achievements can never provide lasting fulfillment. Ultimately, even if we have the perfect life materially, we must give up everything that we've acquired materially at the time of death for our material bodies. Nevertheless, the glitter of the material world is enticing. It tricks us into believing that the next big milestone will bring us true and lasting happiness, getting into a good school, getting a high-paying job, buying a nice house, starting a family, retiring in a beautiful location, and enjoying life post-retirement. Of course, these things aren't inherently bad, and they may bring us temporary joy, but the problem is, unlinked from spiritual life, divorced from spiritual life, they can never provide permanent happiness. No matter what we achieve materially, distress inevitably follows, whether through small frustrations or major losses. A high-paying job may bring financial security, but it often comes with stress, exhaustion, and constant anxiety about our performance. A dream home may provide comfort, but it brings worries about maintaining the house, paying off the mortgage, and resale value. A loving family brings joy, but it also comes with the inevitable fear of loss. Sometimes our family members move away or grow distant from us. And of course, ultimately, we undergo the pain of experiencing them leave their bodies at the time of death for their bodies, or they experience the pain of us leaving our body. Thus, in this world, Material happiness and distress arrive and depart of their own accord. We have no control over when joy will arise or when suffering will strike. Each day unfolds uncertainly, and we can never with assurance predict whether we'll be met with happiness or pain, gain or loss, success or setback. The nature of the material world, to promise happiness but fail to deliver on permanent happiness, reveals its illusory quality. Material illusion is referred to as Maya in Sanskrit, meaning that which is not. We learn about the nature of this material world in the Bhagavad Gita, an ancient spiritual philosophical scripture spoken by the Supreme Lord himself. In the Gita, the Supreme, identified to be Krishna, a name meaning all attractive, describes the illusory quality of this material world. He mentions that it's not that the material world is non-existent, it is indeed real, but it is temporary. Material activities and their results are also temporary. Because this world is always changing, identifying it as our true home and expecting permanent happiness here is the very definition of material illusion. Indeed, in the 8th chapter of the Gita, Krishna also describes this material world as dukhalayam ashashvatam, a place of misery where nothing is permanent. In the same chapter, he states that regardless of where we receive birth in this material world, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. Even if we wish to not focus on these unpleasant realities, we know these statements of Krishna's are true because we experience firsthand the suffering of this world. From the moment we take birth in a material body in this world, and actually even when we're still in the womb, suffering is an unavoidable reality. Even those in youth for the body, those in the child, baby, or infant stages of life, experience discomfort, pain, and distress. No one is immune to suffering at any stage of life. And yet we tend to become inured, numb, or desensitized to suffering, gradually accepting it as a normal part of life. In other words, we adapt to distress, convincing ourselves that despite the constant struggles, we can still find happiness through material adjustments. This illusion is one of the material world's most sinister deceptions, for it convinces us that with enough effort, planning, and adjustment materially, that we can somehow create a perfect, fulfilling life within a world that is, by nature, temporary and imperfect. But how is this insidious material illusion perpetuated? How do we fall for it, so to speak? This material illusion, the false perception that material existence is the ultimate reality, that we are our material bodies, and that we, the soul within the body, can attain permanent happiness in this temporary material world, arises from our deep-rooted material conditioning, which begins from childhood, even before then, we learn, and shapes our worldview. From childhood, at least in our culture, we are conditioned to follow a fairly predictable material path: attending school, securing a stable job, raising a family, supporting loved ones, creating cherished memories with friends and family, and ultimately passing on our estate to the next generation before departing from this world. While nothing is inherently wrong with any of these things, the problem is that they are pursued in isolation, divorced from spiritual life. In reality, all of these activities can be harmonized with a higher spiritual purpose. Indeed, in the Gita, we learn that we can spiritualize our careers, family life, and possessions when we use them in service to the Supreme or Krishna. In fact, this is the heart of Bhakti Yoga, or loving devotional service to the Supreme, which Krishna describes at length in the Gita. However, the problem is that our society encourages us to view all these pursuits, work, family, possessions, etc., as ends in themselves. rather than opportunities for our spiritual development or advancement. This is how material illusion is perpetuated. And because this material pattern of life is widely accepted and reinforced across generations, passed down from one generation to the next, it remains largely unquestioned. Few stop to consider whether such material pursuits, when divorced from a higher spiritual purpose, can truly satisfy the deeper needs of the soul. We are conditioned to believe the illusion of material life, that we are our material bodies, and that therefore exclusive material pursuits will make us permanently happy. As a result, we unconsciously repeat the same pattern as those before us, unaware that real fulfillment lies beyond the fleeting achievements of material life. The Bhagavad Gita teaches that true fulfillment does not come from perpetuating material conditioning. It comes from breaking free from it through potent spiritual practices that awaken us to our true spiritual nature and the eternal spiritual reality. For in the Gita, Krishna reveals that we are not material beings. Rather, we are spiritual beings, eternal individual souls, jivatmas, who are full of knowledge and bliss, Sat Chit Ananda. Our material bodies, on the other hand, are temporary vessels, subject to disease, old age, and ultimately death. Everything in the material world follows this same pattern of impermanence, undergoing 6 stages: birth, growth, remaining for some time, reproduction, dwindling, and destruction. Thus, rather than exclusively focusing on material life, we are far better positioned when we also cultivate spiritual life. Spiritual life allows us to transcend the material suffering of this world and experience the bliss of spiritual life, which is of the permanent variety, even in the here and now. While we can embrace various material stopgap measures to try to find happiness in our lives, such as different relationships, career success, wealth, vacations, none of these will permanently satisfy us if they're divorced from spiritual life. This is because we are not material beings. We are spiritual beings, and only spirit can truly satisfy spirit. Material stopgap measures are like trying to find entertainment on a ship that is actively sinking. They may provide temporary distraction, but they do nothing to address the real problem. We can do anything we like on that sinking ship, but that ship is still going down. Spiritual life, on the other hand, is what allows us to get off the sinking ship of material life permanently. Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the acharya or teacher who introduced Bhakti Yoga to the West in the 1960s, often gave the analogy of a fish out of water to illustrate this point. If we take a fish out of water, we can try to make it comfortable. We can dress it in fine clothing, offer it delicious food, or place it in a luxurious house. But no matter how much we try to provide material comfort, the fish will never be happy because its true nature is to live in water. Similarly, as eternal souls, our true home is in the spiritual world. As long as we remain entangled in material life in this material world, we will always feel out of place somehow, no matter how many adjustments we make to improve our external circumstances. Something will always feel wrong. Something will always feel that it needs improving. Maya, or material illusion, often manifests as the measuring tendency, the habit we have of constantly evaluating what will bring us happiness in the material realm. We analyze, calculate, and strive for material success, believing that the right combination of achievements, possessions, or relationships will finally satisfy us. However, nothing material can ever truly measure up, because the soul's innate longing, our innate longing, is for something eternal, something beyond temporary matter. It's not that things fail to work out materially because we haven't yet discovered the perfect material solution. Rather, things won't work out precisely because the solutions we are trying are material. We require a spiritual solution to solve the root problem of material existence. Real happiness comes only through spiritual life, and this is why we require spiritual life. It reconnects us with our true identity as spiritual beings, as individual souls, and to our source, and the source of all that be, the Supreme Absolute Truth, or Krishna. Without spiritual life, we remain like that fish out of water. No matter how much material comfort we arrange for ourselves, we will never feel truly fulfilled. And what is spiritual life? In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes the yoga system in great detail. When we hear the word yoga, we may initially think of physical postures, asanas, or breathing techniques, pranayam, or meditation exercises. However, these are merely remnants or vestigial aspects of the original yoga system presented in the Gita. Krishna, the originator and creator of the spiritual yoga system, systematically reveals that yoga is not just a physical discipline, but a spiritual science designed to reconnect the soul with him. In modern-day yoga studios, the spiritual heart of yoga has largely been replaced with material goals, such as physical fitness and spinal flexibility, stress relief, and mental well-being. While these benefits may be helpful, they're not the true purpose of yoga. Actual yoga has a spiritual aim to awaken our lost connection with Krishna, the Supreme. And among all the yoga systems, Krishna recommends Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is a direct path to the Supreme, and it is therefore considered the highest yoga, as explained by Krishna himself in the Gita. Bhakti is the yoga of loving devotional service to the Supreme, and importantly, it reinstates us in our already existing eternal relationship with Krishna. This brings up the interesting point that Bhakti Yoga enables us to interact personally with the Supreme. Krishna is also the Supreme Person. This special feature of Bhakti Yoga, how it allows us to interact personally with the Supreme, distinguishes it from the other yoga paths. And to bring our discussion full circle, the spiritual practices of Bhakti Yoga, particularly the chanting of the Maha Mantra on screen, enable us to shed the many layers of our material conditioning, to break free from the material illusion that society perpetuates, and to awaken to our true spiritual identity. This Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This mantra is comprised of the purifying names of the Supreme, and it directly connects us to the Supreme. Chanting it enables us to associate with Krishna, whose purifying influence gradually clears away the illusion of material existence, revealing in its place all the details of our eternal relationship with the Supreme. Importantly, Bhakti Yoga and the chanting of the Maha Mantra do not create something new. Rather, they reawaken us to our already existing eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord, Krishna. This relationship has always been present, but due to material conditioning, due to material illusion, we have forgotten it. This is why we need spiritual life. Without spiritual life, we are endlessly tossed by the waves of material highs and lows, searching for fulfillment in a world that can never truly satisfy us. But with spiritual life, we awaken to our true spiritual nature and rekindle our dormant love, our dormant eternal relationship with the Supreme, with Krishna. And doing this unlocks spiritual happiness. Spiritual happiness is completely unlike its shadow-like material variety. Spiritual happiness is limitless and everlasting and completely transcendental to the illusions of this material world. So let's wake up from the illusion of material life together and begin pursuing spiritual life now. Even the smallest step on this path yields eternal benefit, for no spiritual advancement is ever lost at any time. Unlike material achievements, which fade with time, every effort made in Bhakti Yoga stays with us eternally, carrying us closer to our ultimate goal, pure love of the Supreme, Krishna, who is also the supreme source of all happiness. So this is all we have for today on the topic of why we need spiritual life. There are actually many more reasons for why we need spiritual life. We just covered the topic from one angle today. So stay tuned for more classes on the subject. And please let us know if you have any questions on today's content. You can submit your questions anytime to us at bhaktifundamentals@gmail.com. In the meantime, thank you for listening today, and we'll see you next time on Bhakti Fundamentals.